Whenever we look at modern representations of the prehistoric humans in movies, books, or cartoons, there's a set pattern of depiction that you are all likely to have seen. Man, the hunter, running in the wild with a spear in his hand, accompanied by the woman, the gatherer, with a baby strapped to her back or a basket of crop seeds in her hand. This division of labor in prehistoric world is something that we all have inherently carried in our minds, and the assumption has been carried through museums of natural history as well as our textbooks. But did such a gender-based division of labor really exist in the prehistoric world? Or are such images just a bias that creeped into our modern worlds? In this episode, I'll talk about two new research papers that are debunking such assumptions through physiological as well as archaeological studies. I am Mohana Basu, and this is Pure Science. Kara Okobok, assistant professor at the University of Notre Dame, wondered at the images in movies, books, comics, and cartoons portraying prehistoric men and women since she was a child. As director of the Human Energetics Laboratory at the University of Notre Dame, she found evidence which showed that many of these conceptions about early women and men weren't quite accurate. The accepted reconstruction of human evolution assumed males were biologically superior, but that interpretation wasn't telling the whole story. Relying on both physiological and archaeological evidence, Okobok and Sarah Lacey, an anthropologist at the University of Delaware, published two studies simultaneously in the journal American Anthropologist. Their joint research, coming from these two angles, found that not only did prehistoric women engage in the practice of hunting, but their female anatomy and biology would have actually made them intrinsically better suited for it. This research may go against the kinds of notions we have had about the kind of roles women played in history. Okobok said that rather than viewing it as a way of erasing or rewriting history, the studies are trying to correct the history that erased women from it. In their physiological study, the researchers explained that prehistoric females were quite capable of performing the arduous physical task of hunting prey and were likely able to hunt successfully over prolonged periods of time. From a metabolic standpoint, the female body is better suited for endurance activity, which would have been critical in early hunting because they would have had to run the animals down into exhaustion before actually going in for the kill. The two contributors to that enhanced metabolism were estrogen and adiponectin, which are hormones typically present in higher quantities in female bodies than in male. These two hormones played a critical role in enabling the female body to modulate glucose and fat, a function that is key in athletic performance. Estrogen, in particular, helps regulate fat metabolism by encouraging the body to use its stored fat for energy before using up its carbohydrate stores. According to the team, since fat contains more calories than carbs do, it is a longer, slower burn, which means that the same sustained energy can keep you going longer and can delay fatigue. Estrogen also protects the body's cells from damage during heat exposure due to the extreme physical activity. Estrogen plays an important role for cardiovascular and metabolic health, brain development, and injury recovery. Adiponectin also amplifies fat metabolism while sparing the breakdown of carbohydrates and protein, allowing the body to stay the course during extended periods, especially over great distances. In this way, adiponectin is able to protect the muscles from breaking down and keeps them in better condition for sustained exercise. The female body structure itself is another element researchers found to be of advantage in terms of endurance and effectiveness for prehistoric hunters. With the typically wider hip structure of the female, they are able to rotate their hips, lengthening their steps. The longer steps you can take, the cheaper they are in terms of the energy requirements, and the farther you can get faster. When you look at human physiology this way, you can think of women as the marathon runners versus men as the power lifters. Now coming to archaeology, which tells more of the story of the woman hunter. Several archaeological findings indicate prehistoric women not only shared in the resulting injuries of the dangerous business of close contact hunting, but that it was an activity held in high esteem and valued by them. Neanderthal hunters would often have to get up underneath their prey in order to kill them. The researchers found that both males and females have the same resulting injuries when we look at their fossil records. Okobock described those traumatic injuries as being similar to those received by modern-day rodeo clowns. Injuries to the head and chest where they were kicked by the animal, or to the limbs where they were bitten or received a fracture. These patterns and rates of wear and tear were equal in both women and men, which means that they were both participating in ambush-style hunting of large game animals. Moreover, there is evidence of early female hunters in the Holocene period in Peru, where females were buried with hunting weapons. Okobock said that one would not often get buried with something unless it was important or was something that a person frequently used in life. The researchers also said that there was no reason to believe that prehistoric women abandoned their hunting while pregnant, breastfeeding, or carrying children. And we know that most mammals in the wild continue their hunting activities when pregnant or when they have children. The researchers also point out that there is no indication that a strict sexual division of labor existed. The bottom line of the two studies is that hunting belonged to everyone, not just to males, especially in prehistoric societies where survival was an all hands on deck activity. There just weren't enough people living in groups to be specialized in different tasks, and everyone had to be a generalist to survive. Research like this is bound to raise adverse reactions, especially from sections of the society that believe that men are somehow biologically superior to women. This narrative that ancient men hunted and women stayed at home has trickled down to modern history and religion, confining the role of women in society. The researchers said that revelation is especially important in the current political moment of our society where sex and gender are in spotlight. They want people to be able to change these ideas of female physical inferiority that have been around for so long. When talking about reconstructing the past in order to better understand it and to conduct good science, Okobock said that scientists have to be extremely careful about how modern-day bias can seep into one's interpretations of the past. She cautioned that researchers have to be aware of their own biases and make sure that they are asking the proper questions so that the questions don't lead them down the road of looking for what it is that they want to see. Much of the early scientific studies have been conducted by men, which has led to many of these biases being perpetuated. These biases need to be removed from science, or at least make people take a pause before such thinking is imposed on the next generation. With these studies, the researchers reiterate that one cannot outrightly assume somebody's abilities based on whatever sex or gender that have been assigned to them at birth. This is Mohana Basu, Senior Assistant Editor at ThePrint. If you like our work, do consider paying for a subscription to ThePrint. You can do so through the link in the description box below.